How do we write a will? How do we write a will? Should we create a private trust? We were to have for many months now. For some reasons, it kept getting postponed, but we are so happy that finally we are able to organize it today evening. Very grateful to Mr. Vijay Nallawala and Mr. Amrit Bakhshy to have agreed for this webinar. So let me start off by giving you a brief introduction of Pushpanjali Trust and Citizens for Inclusive Living, the two organizations that are hosting this. Pushpanjali Trust is a registered charitable trust. It's a rights-based trust based in Chandigarh. We have been working in the area of mental health and disability since 2018. We focus on awareness, advocacy, as a physical community, it's limited to Chandigarh Tri-City, but as an online community, there are participants from all across India, some from abroad as well. The idea of Citizens for Inclusive Living was that why should only professionals and persons with mental illness and their caregivers talk about the Mental Health Care Act, rights of persons, community living all the time? If society has to be understanding, sensitized to this, so many more people need to join this campaign. So it was envisioned as a campaign, a mass movement. So like-minded, kindred souls, social workers, special educators, professionals, citizens, journalists, students joined in. We started with about 20 people in 2020, and we've grown to almost 200 people now. We have a very active Facebook group. We are now formalizing this association and getting ourselves registered as a society, and we will soon have a website as well. So it is something that has grown, and I am very keen that it grows from strength to strength, and then lots of other cities have their own chapters along similar lines. I shall now introduce our speakers. Mr. Vijay Nallawala is based in Mumbai. He's an author, he's a blogger, he's an entrepreneur, he wears many hats. He's also very bold, and back in 2012-13 started the first peer support group called Bipolar India. It's a very active group online. They also have physical meetings. They have a very good website, and the link will be shared in the chat box. Perhaps Vijay ji can share it now or later. It's a very active group and a very bold step where Vijay ji came out and shared his story. So in that sense, it's very inspiring to people all across India. Mr. Vijay Nallawala also has immense experience and vast knowledge of financial investments, tax implications. He's been doing some financial investments and managing financial investments for his relatives and near and dear ones. So Vijay ji, privileged to have you. Welcome. Vijay ji will make the main presentation. So the way we will go about this is Vijay ji will share some slides and make the main presentation. And after that, we will have an interactive question and answer session. We are also very privileged to have with us Mr. Amrit Bakhshy. Amrit Bakhshy ji is extremely senior person in the field, and families have known him for more than 20 years now. He was a very important person in the committee of the Mental Health Care Act, framing the rules for the Mental Health Care Act. He is a mentor and guide to several families. He is also an author. He has written 2 or 3 books about the Mental Health Care Act, about the different organizations working in the field. He's always available to families and guardians who want some advice. Amrit Bakhshy ji recently was struggling with some health issues, so we postponed the webinar, which was earlier scheduled in August. He very kindly agreed to be a resource person, so he will be there in the question and answer session to answer questions. He has also been a career banker, so comes with immense knowledge of finance and the legal background. He has been managing for his adult daughter living with schizophrenia. So in that sense, he's somebody who also has the personal experience of managing finances for someone with high support needs. Welcome, Bakhshi ji. Very privileged to have you.
Thank you.
Before we start, I have to offer two disclaimers. One is that this is a general awareness session. How to write a will in one specific case, you will have to please consult your lawyer. Likewise, financial investments, this is again a general awareness. Each case is different. Each person's attitude, sort of risk appetite is different. So please don't construe it as a general, construe it as a general advice. It's not one model fits all. So you have to carefully analyze what your situation is and then plan accordingly in consultation with your lawyer and CA. This webinar is purely a general awareness, so you know what the options are, you know what is needed to be done. The second disclaimer caveat is that this whole presentation is aimed for persons with mental disabilities who have high support needs. So there are some people who are very high functional and they are able to manage their finances. They only need minimal support. Vijay ji has made a presentation for them somewhere else, and he would be happy to share that presentation later. We will forward you the link. This current presentation is for persons with high support needs, in whose case the families and the guardians will have to plan well in advance what is to be done. So please remember these two things in mind. And with this, I now welcome our speaker, Mr. Vijay Nallawala, to take over. Vijay ji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aditya ji, Gurpreet, Amrit Bakhshy ji, and all the participants who are joined in here. I'll share my screen now. Yeah. All right. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are audible.
All right. Thank you. Right. All right. So, as Aditya ji has outlined, it's difficult to create a financial plan or an offering for the general spectrum of people living with mental health condition. Families have their unique set of problems, but as already shared by him, the idea would be to address people where the dependent has high support needs. All right. Even before we come to that issue, let's admit this, that how much effort do we put into financial planning at all? Leave aside that issue of setting aside a corpus for our highly dependent person or creating a structure for that person, but overall also, how much effort do we make into devote to financial planning, even though it is such a critical area of our lives? Decades ago, I think the only way people used to sort of have a financial plan was just randomly save, put in money in fixed deposits, bonds, and and even insurance was a very popular tool among financial investments, and think that is the end of the thing, without having a central design in mind. Yeah. Being objective in the whole process is also very important. Now, when we talk about in this specific case, when there is a family and there is now in this case, I have just used the son as an example of the person with living with mental health condition, so who would be construed as the one with high support needs, and where the family has to plan for that person, right? Now, when we look at this picture, it's also important to remember that the financial plan should not exclude the family from the whole set of things, scheme of things. So although the focus would be on to secure the future of the person, but it is also about what are the needs of the family, individual members, the family as a whole, and how they can, the whole family could be supported, and their needs and objectives are met. So let's begin with how financial planning is, sort of, sometimes we get the basics wrong, the whole concepts around financial planning wrong. So typically, how does a person save? Especially the younger generation who has high spending habits, there is outgo on purchase of gadgets, cars, outgo on EMIs towards various, commitments, financial commitments. But typically, what happens is there is an X amount of income, and then out of that income, whatever is left over, if any, is saved, and that is construed as okay, that I'm building a corpus for my future goals. Sometimes that might be in the deficit also, and that is financed by credit card spendings or personal loans. Would you people agree about this? What this saying says? It's a very old saying, and which set me onto my own financial planning journey decades ago. And I strongly believe in that, because in an era of rising inflation, spiraling costs, this is the fear which many of us from the middle class live with, of our savings not sufficing till the end of our lives. So this is a better way to save, to sort of make, nullify the fear of outliving our corpus, right? So instead of I earning an income, spending the money as I wish to, and then whatever is left aside, I save and or invest. What if I dedicate an amount from it, a percentage, whatever percentage is comfortable to me, depending on my income range, and set it aside as a fixed investment plan. All right. So if here I've taken an example of a person earning 1 lakh per month. All right. Then the savings would come to, at 20% of it, it would be say 20,000 per month, and annually that would be 2.4 lakh. This method is more, structured, which allows you to be more disciplined and not veer off the track. While we can talk about income, we also need to focus on our expenses. What are our monthly expenses? What are the fixed outgoes that happen in a month? This helps us identify what is necessary expenditure and what is the term known as discretionary spend, such as expenditure on dining out, cinema, entertaining people, travel, which could be considered as optional expenses. Now, these are the key components of financial planning. Now, in this case, why am I talking about these areas? Before, there might be doubts in your mind. Even if a family is planning something, the end goal is to sort of sustain the dependent person throughout his or her lifetime, right? Yeah. It is also getting our own financial plan in place. Without that, you can't think of the other aspect of it. So I think it begins with this, and then we could move on to that aspect of the presentation. So these are the basic concepts of a financial plan. There are other elements also, but I will stick to the fundamentals, and I won't use too much of jargon so that it is easily relatable to the participants here. Have you not come across people asking, which is a good mutual fund to invest in. आजकल कौन सा scheme अच्छा है? So there is no specific investment or a scheme which is good or bad. It depends on what suits your needs and objectives. Yeah. And for that, we need to identify our key goals. So the key goals, I mean, I have just enumerated what might be important for many of you people. Retirement is obviously a need for every person, whether in the working age group or even who has already quit a job. Also, you have to ensure cash flows post-retirement, right? Yeah. Children's education, marriage. In our case, Corpus for the dependent child, and of course, how we structure that, create a plan for it. Now, the key part to this is, which we often miss out on, is we need to put a figure to these specific goals. That would take an entire session on its own. But the thing is, you can take the help of a certified financial planner. It would be an investment worth going into, because it would delineate your entire path ahead in life, right? So for example, if I say that my daughter would need funds for a higher education abroad, for instance, and if the time horizon is 5 years down the line, I would have to add the inflation for the 5 years. And then what is the amount I would need to keep ready at this moment, and how much would it grow by that period of time? So roughly described, that is how it would work. Right? The second element of the financial plan is risk profiling. So Aditya ji already mentioned in the introduction, each person has a different risk profile, and this is so important a factor, yet often ignored in the discourse of financial planning or advice being thrown about randomly, because each family, each individual has an it's almost like a unique fingerprint for the family. It's a financial fingerprint, I would say. All right. So here it would be the number of earning members in a family. Is it just one person who is the earning member, where the risk becomes, totally sort of leaning on that person's earnings? Number of dependents that the person has to, whether I have aging parents, whether I have children who are still school going or college going. The income profile is also very relevant. Now, for instance, in the pandemic, we realized how many people were affected because of, their businesses were affected for a prolonged period during the lockdowns. So the income flow wasn't coming in at that period of time. Or is there any pension eligibility for that person if it employed with a PSU or in the government departments? So all these things will sort of identify what is the kind of risk that the person can take in his or her financial plans. And a very important aspect of making any investment decisions is, the time horizon. When we say years to goal, is the longer the time horizon, the higher the risk you can take with your investment choices. I'll come to that a little bit later in my presentation to bring clarity about what I'm referring to. For instance, if I need some, I will know that I have got an expenditure coming up in say 6 months down the line, then I cannot put it into equity markets because there can be volatility and that capital can be eroded. So I would rather put it into a secure investment like a fixed deposit of a 6-month tenure. Yeah, to make a crude example. And investment planning, again, there are sub-elements to this component of investment planning. And there have been surveys about the wealthiest persons in the world, and they have been asked about what has been the single most important factor in their journeys, which has led to their wealth creation over the years. And one common sort of response from the participants of this survey was asset allocation. So what does asset allocation actually mean? And in a sense, we all of us do asset allocation. All of us probably hold hold some property of our own. It might be a house, it might be a shop or an office or some sort of commercial property or a factory. When I say debt here, in layman's language, debt is translated into fixed income instruments. So, instruments such as fixed deposits, RBI bonds, where the coupon rate is more or less fixed, and there is less risk involved. And equity, you people will be aware about, pertains to equity markets. So it could be an investment either directly into equity shares or through mutual funds. A judicious mix of these assets ensures that your wealth is secured against volatility and also meets your risk profile and your objectives. So that is why your asset allocation needs to somehow I had got logged out. Apologies for that. Yeah. You will have to make me the co-host again. Apologies for this.
You can continue, sir.
Just a second. I'm trying to get my PowerPoint back. There is some problem. Yeah, sorry about this. Apologies for the abrupt cutting off from the live feed. Yeah. So, as I was saying, the asset allocation is key to wealth creation, to protecting of your corpus, growth of it, beating inflation, and the need. There is a big need to match it to one's risk profile. Yeah. Also, as I said, the time horizon is important. Again, this is a sort of a set. There are nuances to this. Each goal has its own sort of a risk attached to it. So for a child's education, I would probably take less risk than maybe planning for a vacation abroad, right? Yeah, because that is not so sacrosanct. Our investments and our decisions need to be tax efficient. Right. I hope you can see my screen again in full screen.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Yes, sir, we can see. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, what are the type of assets that one can invest in? This is what I was referring to, the two broad categories in the financial sector, which are debt assets, which are also known as fixed income assets, fixed or fairly fixed. I mean, nowadays, even RBI bonds have, been tied to the floating interest rate. So it's earning 7.1%, and that would be reset according to the rate prevailing, the treasury rate prevailing by the government of India. And equity is the high risk sector, which involves equity shares, mutual funds, hybrid mutual funds, and also exchange traded funds. All right. Now, coming to the kind of profile of people that I'm who are in this session with me today. In fact, even I'm a senior citizen. I think many people would be might not be aware about a wonderful scheme which is prevalent at this moment, is the Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vyandana Yojana. All right, which allows you to invest up to rupees 15 lakh after you have crossed the age of 60. And the 15 lakh would be for a tenure of 10 years. It's a scheme which is, it's issued as a policy by the Life Insurance Corporation of India, and it has a fixed coupon rate of 7.4%. So that is quite decent in the times that we see right now, where interest rates are fluctuating so wildly, and they have dipped to something around 5.5 and even lesser than that on bank FDs. The types of fixed income instruments, PPF is something that I would advise even a youngster to sort of start a PPF account, because it is tax-free. It is tax-free at all three stages, while earning the interest, while making withdrawals, and even the contribution to PPF is exempt from tax under the section of 80C. So even contribution to PPF is exempt. So it is one of the finest tax efficient instruments, and being a government scheme, a secure scheme. For employees, it would be EPF, RBI bonds. I just referred to bank FDs, which I think all of us use to a certain extent, and they can also develop as an creating a semi-liquid fund for our emergency uses. Debt mutual funds, which is again a varied subject of. It would entail quite a few mutual funds. There are liquid funds, there are arbitrage funds, hybrid debt funds. But the category, I would just club it here as debt mutual funds. Annuity is another interesting option for senior citizens, especially where we would lock into a return which is guaranteed for life. Yeah. For instance, I had taken an annuity plan some years back, and I get guaranteed return for 7.4% for my lifetime. Now, there are such schemes which are particularly suitable to people with our risk profile, where there is a dependent within our family who we need to cater to in our absence, right? I mean, that is the biggest question which sort of bothers caregivers like us, isn't it? Right? So what is the scheme? Basically, how does the scheme work? That I put in a lump sum amount, say, so can I mention an amount of 50 lakh? On that, I would get a guaranteed return of which is known as annuity. That interest return, which component which is there on the principal I have invested, is known as annuity in this product. It is you can call it a immediate pension product, and The product is guaranteed return for a lifetime. There might be schemes of private insurers also. In fact, I know there are a couple of schemes of this modeled on the same lines as LIC's Jeevan Shanti. So you could look at the option which suits you depending on the terms offered by the insurer. How does this scheme suit us? I mean, what are its key features? Now, if I were to take this scheme on my name, make my daughter a joint holder in the scheme, till I am alive, I'll be drawing 100% of the annuity. There are various options, by the way, for the scheme. I mean, I'm referring to one specific option which we can sort of use, as a vehicle to plan for our dependents. So suppose I invest 50 lakhs in my name, I will get a guaranteed return which annual return. I can even choose the mode, whether I wanted more monthly, quarterly, or half yearly, or annually, the annuity return to come in. And after my passing away, it would go to my joint holder, which would be my daughter, all right? And she would get that annuity for her lifetime. And after her, it would go to the nominee mentioned in the policy document, right? So the annuity wouldn't go to that nominee. The corpus would be refunded to the nominee. What this does is, so in my absence also, there is a guaranteed amount of income coming into my immediate dependent. And that is a pretty secured in way of return coming in, and it comes in for a lifetime. Now, what are the pros and cons? As I said, it's a lifelong stream of income. Now, when you take a scheme from LIC of India, both the capital and returns are guaranteed under the sovereign guarantee of the government of India. I don't know whether you people are aware of this. Now, the big problem with such schemes is the annuity rates, especially in this interest rate scenario, are pretty unattractive right now. Yeah, so that is something you will have to sort of weigh the pros and cons about whether you would be defensive enough and want to opt for this scheme, or you would look at other options also. And you can always mix and match also. Now I've already shared with you the mix of the products that one person can invest in. Many a times our emotions cloud our investment choices, even our redemption choices. So overall, our emotions and impulsiveness can affect our financial decision making, right? Fear and greed are talked about so much in financial discussions. And so, for instance, when there is a bull market, everybody is talking about the returns they are making, that they have made a killing in the market, said that their stocks have grown by 40%, 70%, even more than 100% in a short period. And that entices you to plunge in when the markets are already overvalued. Greed is one typical example was the COVID pandemic, when the markets corrected by almost half, and then you were afraid of your corpus eroding further. And when in fact you should have left it intact or even topped up on your investments, you withdrew the investments from the equity markets at a huge loss, right? So these are not objectively made decisions, and they impact your overall, the way your investment journey shapes up. Herd mentality is also connected to the fear and greed phenomenon, right? Because we, and even fear and greed are usually experienced in bulk by the masses, right? And we have seen that on and off in cycles in the economy. Also, if you have burnt your fingers in the past, you might be wary of going through that investment route again, although the scenario is vastly different. For persons who are in this kind of a dilemma, there is a vehicle known as hybrid mutual fund, or also earlier they used to be called as balanced mutual fund, which invest in a combination of equity and debt to take away that excessive volatility that one is fearful of when investing directly in equity markets. And of this category, especially for those who would want to make the most of market movements, balanced advantage funds are a good category to consider, because the way they are structured is, if the markets are at an all-time high, the fund would reduce exposure to equity, shift it to fixed income to reduce its risk. And when the markets have corrected drastically and there is an opportunity for the fund manager to buy equity at a better valuation, the funds are again shifted to a larger extent to equity. And so this shifting keeps on happening regularly. And this is tax efficient because this doesn't come at a cost to you. When you individually sort of sell between equity, shuffle between equity and debt, that is not tax efficient because there is capital gains tax applicable on it. Irrespective of whether you want to take a risk or not, remember, we have to remember this, that not taking a risk is also taking a huge risk. In the asset allocation chart, I briefly touched upon the non-financial assets. We know about gold and other precious commodities. It could be silver. And nowadays, there are people invest in complex sort of products such as crypto, oil futures, and so on. But let's not dabble into all that. For people who are very risk averse, it is said that up to 10% of your portfolio can be invested in gold as a hedge against volatility. And now, even here, rather than holding physical gold, which is not an efficient way of investing in it at all, there are much better investment options either through gold ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, gold bonds, on which you get a coupon rate of around 3% a year. And also, there is another interesting asset class which you might consider, a multi-asset fund, which invests in equity, debt, as well as gold. Property, what are the pros and cons of property? In fact, Indians have a proclivity to invest massively into property and gold. Our exposure to financial assets is still very low as compared to the developed world. If your corpus is large enough, you can invest in a second home, which would generate income. See, one's first home, which I'm living in, for instance, is hardly a financial asset for me because it's a locked-in capital. It does not serve any purpose to me otherwise. It's not a productive asset. The second house, if we have, it's vacant, I can give it out on rental income, and that would be a regular stream, plus the appreciation that happens, and the income tax benefits on the housing loans that I would procure. And there are a lot of cons against property. The biggest being it's a very illiquid market. We have heard of distressed sales when the property has to be liquidated at a time when you need the money the most, and you get about 70 or 80% of the cost. The taxation issues that come in about the capital gains tax, the maintaining the property, those costs involved. And in our case, especially when we talk about as caregivers and then transferring property to our dependents, it brings in another element of the unknown, of legal aspects and so on. This is how if we leave our portfolios untouched, this is how during drastic changes in the markets, especially equity markets, the portfolio can sort of go haywire without us doing anything. That is where we need to keep on balancing between equity and debt to our agreed ratio, what we are comfortable with. Systematic investment plans, which can be monthly plans, are the best ways of investing into equity, because they rule out volatility of the market to a large extent. It is a risk averaging tool and helps generate long-term wealth. Many of us even don't know what our total assets are on any given point of time. So we might talk about the scenario in our family, how susceptible we are because of the situation we are in. It is important that my spouse, my immediate family members, maybe my siblings whom I trust, know exactly what my assets are, total assets are on any given point in time. There are, to make matters simple, one can use the help of a portfolio tracker, which I do myself, to give you an at-a-glance look at what your assets are, total assets, as on date, which are marked to market. So, for instance, one I would recommend is on moneycontrol.com, where you can even log in and sort of create your portfolio and mention your borrowings as well. One can learn more about mutual funds on Value Research, which is a very credible site, and subscribing to publications such as ET Wealth is also, that is Economic Times supplement, is highly recommended. It comes once a week on every Monday. I would really recommend this to the participants. It gives us a ringside view about what personal finance is about. A very, very critical aspect of financial planning is contingency fund. Having that in place is, I don't need to highlight it enough, because especially during the pandemic, we realized there were families who were strapped for funds for a long period, and it affected their entire cash flows. Many people had to stop their EMIs, and it caused a lot of havoc. Yeah. This was an external circumstance, but it could happen within the family also due to some unforeseen circumstances. So we need to be guarded on this count. It could be on account of a health emergency or anything that we do not foresee. So I would suggest that having a contingency fund, it could be either in the form of a bank FD, which most people are conversant with, and it could be linked to your savings account, where you can withdraw it even with a debit card. Other part of cash flow management is, if I know my daughter is going to complete her graduation 8 years down the line or 1 year down the line, then my investments also need to mature at that time. There is no point in having an investment in her name, and that is going to mature much after her graduation, for a post-graduation studies or whatever my targeted objective is. Now, this is an important consideration for people where there is the sort of, let me put it this way, the person living with a mental health condition might be a high support dependent, but might still have some financial control with himself or herself. Now, in such a situation, what happens when the person is in a mental health crisis himself or herself, right? So especially when the person is in psychosis, mania, or very severe depression, at that time, the judgment is severely impaired. We know that happens. That is scientific, and indiscreet decisions can be made when that can be disastrous for the person and family. So the immediate thing to do is to take charge of the credit cards, ATM cards, or checkbook, or whatever the person has, which could cause damage to his or her finances. And other thing is to operate all the bank accounts and investments of that dependent in either or survivor mode with parents or siblings. Coming to, once we have done with the investment planning and financial overview part of it, let's come to a very critical part of what is also a component of financial planning. Because financial planning is not only focusing on wealth generation, it is also about protecting our wealth against the unforeseen, right? So life insurance, we all know what is life insurance about. Even today, unfortunately, we see that the appreciation of term life covers is still nascent. People don't realize how important term insurance is, because at a low cost, for a substantial value, you get coverage, insurance coverage, and it protects the entire family against the unforeseen. Now, here again, we might ask, who needs life insurance? So many people become sentimental, and then they buy insurance products for their children. Okay, I have seen so many people doing so, where the insurance is bought for the children. Insurance is for protecting the income generating ability of a person. All right. So what is the income a child is generating? Who are you protecting that against? So it is totally meaningless. So it is the income generator, which in this case would be the parent, who would need to be insured, so that anything unforeseen happening to him or her would take care of the child's future. I would like to share something with you, you people here. Although I live with bipolar disorder, I myself was into life insurance myself for a period of 8 years during my journey. After my enterprise, I shut it down due to my health reasons. And I sought a cover of 1.5 crore from LIC in those times. And after due disclosure of bipolar disorder, and my policy was issued. So even for the dependent, if the person is earning, is an earning member, then securing his or her life might be considered. What is more relevant to the community here would be non-life insurance. So it would be health insurance specifically. There are other types of insurance which are property and other things. So let's not get into that. Now, despite the Mental Health Care Act 2017 and subsequent IRDA guidelines, what we have seen is that the implementation is still very, very poor and tardy. Routinely, proposals for insurance get rejected by insurers on flimsy grounds, and claims for insurance, I mean claims against policies, if somebody already has a policy, then claims get rejected when it is the person is admitted for mental health crisis into hospital. So both the sort of purposes are not being met. Firstly, the policy is difficult to procure after disclosure. And the second thing is, if the person gets admitted, the claims are not getting settled. That is the real scenario. I would like urge you people to look at a site which has been created by a wing of Center for Mental Health Law and Policy, IMHO. I will try to share the link with you people during the Q&A. That site gives you a brilliant view of all the insurers, all the products they have, and you can apply filters as to what kind of a product you are looking for your dependent, and whether the product will, the company and the product covers those, particular filters. So for instance, if you mention, I want hospitalization benefit, for mental illness, does the insurer cover it? The site gives you clear indications. This is the most crucial part of today's, our discussion and coming together for this fine, conversation that I appreciate the challenge that many of us caregivers, I am a caregiver myself. This is the troubling question that haunts us: who after me, isn't it? Yeah. So what are the ways can we, apart from the other aspects of caregiving, where we might have arrangements in place or might be in the mode of putting these things in place, as far as the financial aspects are concerned, what options do a caregiver, caregiving family have? One thing is, for instance, in my case, I have not done anything drastic. I am managing my assets on my own. In fact, I manage extended assets of my extended family's assets as well, in addition to my own families. And as far as when I'm thinking about my dependent, I'm in a fortunate space where I have a sibling and other sort of supportive members in my family who would take my position when I am not around. I am already a senior citizen, so of course I know that I am mortal and I will not be around forever. So I have the liberty of going through this path where I manage my own assets, ensure that wealth creation is the maximum, and that would be sort of passed on to my dependent. Now, preparing a will is not anything connected with today's talk. It has to be done by any person, irrespective of whether the person has, whether family has somebody dependent on them due to a mental health condition or not. This is a prerogative for all of us. But now, when we have a person with disability, we need to be more cautious in drafting the will, in creating those kind of provisions which would safeguard their interest. Yeah, we'll come to that also. Third option is to create a private trust to take charge of the needs of the person. This can be created when I can create a trust for my dependent right when I'm alive, and then that vehicle will ensure that there is and it will have a clear mandate either to disburse money from this day onwards or after I'm not alive. That that can be customized according to my needs. We can even think of a combination of the second point and third point. Either will away part of our assets and also create a trust. So not just use one vehicle to be doubly safe, right? And so this is the path I have chosen: administration of willed assets by a trusted family member. I hope this point is clear because this is very relevant to all of us. And how do we make a will? I don't have, I'll be finishing my presentation soon. I know that this has been a long talk, and then we'll have adequate time for Q&A. So a will can be drafted on a plain paper. It is preferable that when we have a complex situation in a family like we are discussing today, that we involve an advocate and get it drafted by getting all the legal nuances in place. From our end, we need to disclose all our assets that we have. For instance, if we have mutual funds, FDs, then the mutual fund portfolio numbers, fixed deposit numbers, bank account savings account numbers, so on and so forth in detail. The quantum of those assets as on date, the amount would vary, of course. Mention or share that you want to give away to each of your heirs if you have more than one heir, right? The will has to be attested by two witnesses, independent witnesses who are not the heir. That is important, because if one of the heirs is also a witness, then the will would be null and void. I would strongly urge people to appoint executors of the will. So that's a simple process. It could be many people appoint a trusted chartered accountant or an advocate as a executor, but you can do it among your to somebody who's very competent in these matters, a close relative, a very trusted friend, or even a professional, as I discussed, as an executor. So the executor's job is to ensure that the will is transmitted to the legal heirs as wished by in the will, without any deficit in the terms of the will. will, although can be written only on a plain paper, and meeting these above requirements makes it a legal document, but you have the option of either notarizing it or even better, registering the will. Registering the will reduces the chances where there are, possibilities of conflict in the family. This is very important, where there might be legal heirs who might be contesting the, the merit of the will, whether it's a genuine will or not. The registered will sort of eliminates doubts, although even that is not foolproof. Even registered wills have been taken to court and been contested. In certain cases, after the person passing away, the will would need to be probated. And this is especially applicable in the territory of Mumbai and Chennai, where there is where this stipulation is there, because financial institutions do not accept an unprobated will. One good way of securing the the intent of the will is and taking out doubt is getting the whole process recorded by with videography, and that the video DVD or something like that could be preserved to ensure that the sanctity of the will making process is not questioned. This is especially true when the person who is writing the will is very elderly, and it might be then challenge that the person was not in the right frame of mind. Another thing I need to, it's not there in the slide, but the person who is writing the will needs to be in a sound state of mind to write the will. Yeah, that's an important that is, so an elderly person, that is which is the typical aspect which can be contested about the soundness of mind. Again, for an elderly testator, a doctor's certificate would be very helpful, because it nullifies doubt about the person's ability to think clearly at that point of time and objectively draft a will. A private trust can be set up for your beneficiary, as I just mentioned, and it can be either be a revocable trust or a irrevocable trust. Yeah, these are two important distinctions between the types of trusts. It can be set up with the help of a banker, preferably a PSU bank, because of the credibility associated. It there are some advantages, the protection from creditors, especially if you are a business person, professional management of the corpus, that it takes out the equation of what will happen to the funds after me, whether the dependent will get the money as intended. And again, the cash flows are sort of secured. What are the contradictions? Income is taxable of the trust, so that it is treated like any private entity. And the stamp duty, registration fees, and legal fees for creating the trust, and of course the bank fees. So you might pick and choose between what suits your family the most. You can create one corpus, I mean, you might have a corpus in mind for your dependent, and then divide your corpus into baskets. One basket could be for the trust, one you could manage yourself and then will it away, and then have an administrator or a family member looking after that corpus for your dependent. The various ways to go about it. About the trust, more questions about it, I would like you people to address to Amrit Bakhshy ji, who is very well versed with the trust creation rules and regulations. He has himself been through this process. As Aditya ji had said at the outset, that each one of us is unique, our circumstances are unique, our risk appetite is, I have one set of risk appetite, you would have a different one. So what I have said, it is from my perspective, it might not be amenable to all of you, but I think the broader points might be acceptable, right? And again, this is not a definitive financial guide. Consult your chartered accountant or your lawyer before you take such important decisions of your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijayji. Thank you. Vijayji, it was very clear that the financial investor in you, the passionate financial investor, came out. And so our participants learned a lot more about mutual funds, but some of them may be very eager to go a little bit more into will and private trust, issues of guardianship. There have been 1 or 2 questions about family pension. So may I now request Amrit Bakhshy ji, who's a very senior respected person in the field and a friend and guide and mentor to several families. Bakhshy Saab, would you like to talk a little bit about some aspects of how to secure the financial and legal interests of a person with high support needs, and in particular touch on family pension?
Yes, thank you, Aditya. Now, I am not an expert, although I was a banker, but that was long, long back. Now I am a caregiver, and what to do about my child's future, how to make it secure for her. I have thought about it. I have taken pains in understanding, and then I have drawn some plan. And accordingly, I would like to discuss that with you. Now, you see, as the caregivers, what are our worries? Now, some of us have a family member who have some disability. Still, they can manage things, and there are some, they are living with severe mental disability. They need very high support. Now, I would say that even if somebody has lesser of a problem, we don't know what will happen in future. It is fluctuating. You know, some days are very good, some period is very good. Again, there is a deterioration. So relapse occurs. So we have to think of the worst situation and how we can help our family member with the mental illness. And now other aspect which you have to think is make your family member as secure as possible, at least financially. Now, our family member with mental illness has siblings who are very good, very helpful. They will take full care. They have made promises, but that is today's position. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. Whether they will still be concerned when I am not there on the scene. Will they take same interest? They will, perhaps. In all probability, they will remain nice, committed to their sibling, committed to their cousin, or any close relative. But I must make it that chance element as less as possible. Now, we were talking about various options which can be considered. Now, liquidity is out of question. You see, even senior citizens, as you become a senior citizen, you should slowly start reducing your equity assets. So that is the thumb rule. So that is out of question. And now you have to see that it is a secured and less complicated process. You know, of course, banking is there, fixed deposits are there, and this public sector banks, it is safe. Even other banks, it is safe. Earlier, this deposit guarantee organization, which was there, and up to 1 lakh, it was secured, insurance cover was provided. Now this present government has made it 5 lakhs. So there is a safety. Even in private banks, it is safe. But like if your child needs very high support, then and child is given any paper or any check, and if the child is told you sign here, child will sign. and then child or a family member can be cheated. So it should not be that way, that whatever assets, liquid assets you're leaving for child, uh, child loses it in no time after you go. So it should be in such a way that child gets a secured regular income which nobody can touch. Child also cannot touch. It comes to the child every month. And of course, you have to have some liquid assets also. If there is a need, as we were discussing, as Vijay mentioned, that insurance companies are not providing cover to persons with mental illness, even though legally they have to do that. So I consider, I mean, that's what I have done for my own child, that whatever corpus I am able to create for her, 2/3 of it I have invested in such a way that she gets a regular income every month. Like assuming that I have saved 2 crores for her. Now inflation is going very, 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 very high. Rapidly it is growing. So if today she can manage in 50 lakhs, 50,000 per month, 60,000 per month, next year she would need 10% more perhaps. So you have to take that also into account. So whatever arrangements you are making, you keep future in mind, that inflation will be going up rapidly. So 2/3 if you invest in such a way that the person with family member with mental illness gets a regular income, and 1/3 you keep. I mean, you have to trust somebody. I mean, this word, we have to trust each other. So whomsoever you think relative or friend or any known person. You see, it's not that it has to be a relative only. And in this connection, another problem which many of you will be aware also, that Reserve Bank has come with, I consider it a very stupid instructions, that banks cannot have a joint account with a person who's not a close relative. Now this makes things very difficult. You see, if you have a very close friend whom you trust more than your own other children or uncles or aunts or cousins, so you want to have a joint account with that person of your child, you cannot do that. So the only alternative is then you open an account in post office, or you open an account with a cooperative bank. So cooperative bank, this Reserve Bank's dictum does not apply, and in post office it does not apply. And post office also, they are modernizing themselves, and the things are not as bad as they used to be. So post office is a good option to consider. Before we go into further discussions, I would like to uh, share with you what I consider is the best option for we, the family members with a family member with mental illness. Of all the study which I have done and which I have opted myself, you see, I, as Vijay mentioned, I had opened a trust for my child, and as he said, it is very important that you must have an executor of a will. So for this, if you open a trust, then also you should have an executive trustee. So if there is a difference of opinion, then executive trustee mostly should be a banker who can keep an eye and see that what trustees are withdrawing is actually used for the person for whom it is intended, that is for the benefit of the person with mental illness. So now you open a trust in that way. Now, if you have to withdraw money regularly for the person with mental illness, then 2 trustees should sign, to be on the careful side. Now you 2 trustees have to come. Suppose you have appointed 3 trustees, out of them at least 2 should be available and sign a check, and it may delay it, or problems may come up. Somebody is out of station, somebody has gone overseas, and then you have to pay bank charges. If you get the will registered and you keep it with the bank, then there are charges for it, and then annually bank is charging for it. then you have to see the income tax part of it. You see what the income person is having from this trust investments, those are taxed. And when I did it, then the rule was that at the highest rate, it has to be paid. The tax has to be paid at the highest rate. And I think for disabled beneficiaries, they have made some concession, or for this daughter. If you are opening it for the benefit of a daughter, then there was some concession. I don't know what is the status now. I understand that now that income will get added to the income of the beneficiary, and then tax will have to be paid on that. So I find that this life insurance corporation, you see, this Vijay mentioned about Jeevan Shanti. Now, most of the public sector banks are running some similar schemes. I find that Jeevan Akshas scheme 7 with the option G is the best, what I consider the best, and that is where I have done the investments. And this is, you see, where the you get the monthly income. And you see, the one in will, what is the problem? That will the benefits will flow only after the person who has made the will, that is a testator, he dies. Before that, benefit is not available. So the testator cannot see in his lifetime that benefit has started flowing. So here you can have a single installment annuity or for life, where the benefit can start immediately. You see, you can make it after 5 years, after 10 years, after 15 years. I prefer to see that every month the income is flowing and it is being credited to the person's account. So I have made it that as soon as I have taken the policy, the annuity or the pension, as Vijay was saying, we can call it, that should start flowing to the account every month. So I have seen with my eyes that, okay, some 50,000, 60,000 is coming to her account, and that nobody can touch. Nobody can touch that, because it is safe with the LIC. So no risk is involved, as the sovereign guarantee which Vijay was telling us. And I have opted for option G. Option G is that every year there is a 3% increase. You see, when I did this investment, then only ICICI and HDFC were having such option available, where they were giving 5% increase. But those were private banks, so I did not opt for that. I went for LIC. So if there is a 20,000 annuity per month, then every year 3% of that, that means 600 will get added. So at least part of inflation is taken care of by opting for option G. So that provides some security. It is some cover against inflation also. And then 1/3 you can invest in post office. And you see another thing which Vijay mentioned, that LIC is very good, that Pradhan Mantri's scheme, where the interest is 7 point something he mentioned. So it is good, but it is for 15 years. See, I am now 81. At 81, I would not like to block funds for 15 years. I am actually waiting that some investments which are there for 5 years, because post office does it for 5 years. So post office has a similar scheme for senior citizens. So 3 years are over. I hope I remain alive for another 2 years, so that I can make a liquid of it and invest it in some scheme or in some other name, the name with my daughter, because this is for senior citizens and the person who is going to look after her when I am not there in the scene. So you can think of these things. And also, if you are going for this Jeevan Akshay scheme, you can do this online. because if you do it online or you go to insurance office and you do it, then you are saving 2%. What goes to the agent, that will come to you. So your annuity will be higher than that. Then it is higher the amount, there is an incentive. Vijay mentioned some 50 lakhs. So on 50 lakhs, there is a 2.1% incentive. That means your annuity will be more by 2.1%. Now imagine if 2.1% and your child is 40 years and next 40, 50 years, 2.1% more annuity gets, how much it comes to. So that way, if you do that, you go directly, you put a larger amount instead of doing it in 2 installments, 3 installments, 4 installments, just make it 1 installment. So also your annuity becomes more. So these are some of the ideas, suggestions based on my own experience, which I have shared with you. And I will be happy to answer any other questions which you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bakshiji. Thank you so much. And I can already see in the chat box that people are interested to know a little bit more. So one is, just to clarify, this is LIC Jeevan Akshay Scheme 7, option G.
Yes,
G for
yes.
growth.
Yes.
Maybe I'll write it down in the chat box, or if you have a link, you can share, sir. Now, this 3% increase every year is a simple increase, not a compound increase.
No. It is simple. And in case you are thinking of going for it, do it fast, because this also they may stop this 3%, because you see the actuarial calculation, they have some difficulty. So from an insurance company's viewpoint, this is perhaps not the right way to do it. So already, as I was saying, HDFC had, but they have withdrawn. ICICI had, they have withdrawn, and other insurance companies don't have this. Only LIC have this now. So before this Jeevan Akshay 8 comes, and there you may find that this 3% increase is not available. So if you are convinced that this is the
Sir, we lost your audio, but let me ask another question related to this, and perhaps Vijayji can also answer. How does it work? So this interest, this annuity payment comes to the bank account every month. So someone has to withdraw and take it to the person. Does it come to the trustee's account or that person's account, and the co-signer can withdraw it and take it?
So see, there are two things right now. What Amrit Bakhshy ji has done is, that is in his lifetime, right? Aditya ji, yeah, to share one actual case study. So there the income is going, he's managing the funds of the which are flowing in from that annuity, right? Now he's already created a trust, and I mentioned that in my slide also, if you recall, that the will can also mention that after my passing away, that all my wealth and my income can be sort of be passed on to the trust, existing trust, or even a new trust can be created. You know, the will can define how the trust should be created. All right. Yeah. So that is a valid question. So it would come to a bank account. Yes. And so somebody would, depending on the, I mean, how, you know, how much is the struggle of that person, whether that person can operate a debit card and withdraw, or somebody has to step in. So yes, that would have to be taken care of. I agree with you.
And likewise, Vijayji, there was a question like when a person is in mania or is for a brief period is not of sound mind, how do the guardians or family members take care of the bank account or the credit debit cards at that time? Someone had a question in the chat box.
Yes. So in fact, we have had a lot of cases like this. We have had people, you know, even borrowing and buying a new home during a manic phase in our community, right? And creating major hurdles for the family. So, so a family member, maybe it is a sibling or the parents who are in charge in such a situation, need to make sure firstly take away the wallet, you know. And during mania, the person might be very difficult to restrict at within the home environment. The person is rebellious, right? Yeah. So you might give a minimum amount of cash to the person and take away all the digital instruments such as debit card, ATM card, credit card, and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So that is one basic precaution. Ensure no checkbook is with the person. Because if not the debit card and credit card, even the checks can be issued randomly for things that the person doesn't need at all. So this is the only thing that we can think of. Of course, it all depends on the particular situation. The person can be so rebellious, he or she might not be willing to part with it, right? Yeah, we are assuming this is so. And in a typical case where the, mania with full-blown mania with psychosis, the person would have to be either be hospitalized or, constrained at home. So there can be higher supervision as well. Because now another problem is online purchases on the e-commerce sites. It's not only restricted to having the card physically with you, right? Yeah, we have that new threat that you can go on to Amazon.in or Flipkart.in and buy to your, heart's fill. Yeah.
Can there be a limit to, can the bank be told or the card company that this is the monthly limit, or a person is not authorized to spend more than 3,000 or 5,000 in one go and the total monthly limit is this? So whether it is online or a physical purchase, the person is limited to, the damage is limited.
That's an excellent question, Aditya ji. But I don't see in the Indian setup which law would permit that. Because when a bank account is opened of an adult, it is construed to be that the person is of sound mind, right? Yeah. So those restrictions would be sort of imposed when the person opens the account, right? I mean, you create those, that time it can be done. But it would have to be done with voluntarily by the person consenting to it. Because now if it is my credit card, I have bipolar disorder, would I agree to somebody else intervening in my operations? There are fine points here involved there. Yeah, so the bank would be, the bank relationship is with the account holder. You get me, right? A technical relationship. Why would they be an intermediary in all these complications? So they might not be taking instructions of the family also. Let's be prepared for that. Right? Yeah. In fact, this needs to be probed deeper about the legal aspects in such a circumstance. What is the stance of financial institutions, apart from banks, other institutions also, credit card companies and so on, right? Whether a caregiver, unless somebody is a guardian. Now, the guardian makes it a very different proposition. Then that is a legally appointed position, isn't it? So where there is high support needs, there is a likelihood of a person already being appointed guardian. Then I guess the guardian would have the authority to intervene and approach the bank or the credit card issuing entity and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Vijay ji. In fact, I was coming to that. So guardianship and limited guardianship. मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, और हमारा ये अभी तक ज्यादा प्रेजेंटेशन इंग्लिश में ही हुई, कुछ एक दो लोगों ने हिंदी भी रिक्वेस्ट किया था, तो अगर गार्डियनशिप, लिमिटेड गार्डियनशिप पे आप और अमृत बख्शी जी थोड़ा सा उस पे रोशनी डाल सकें.
Amrit Bakhshy ji would be a better resource in that department, Aditya ji, very honestly. I hope that has he already joined back?
He was trying to join back. I'm not sure.
Because I am not, we are truly, in fact, I guess that you people yourselves would be more adept in these matters, because the situation in my family does not require me to look at the path of guardianship. Probably that is why I have not dived so deeply into it. All right. Yeah. So my knowledge on that is peripheral, and I would prefer not to speak about that. Yeah, if you would excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Bakhshi ji is trying to join back. Gurpreet, please let Bakhshi ji in.
So he would know everything about it because it is linked to the RPDA more than the MHCA in this case, yeah, where the guardianship is concerned.
Vijay ji, there's one more aspect that we need to touch on, and in case you can, please do, is the question of family pension.
All right.
The person with the mental disability receiving family pension, what are the challenges? If you would like to throw some light on that.
Right. So if the person has procured a disability certificate, and if the parent of the person was entitled to a pension, then the dependent would also be, after that person's passing away, the pensioner's passing away, would be, automatically the pension would be entitled to that dependent. I'm not sure whether it is to the extent of 50% or 100%. On that, I have a little bit of a doubt. But the need for that, there is a need of a disability certificate.
Thank you, Vijay ji. I think Amrit ji has joined. Bakhshi ji, are you back with us? नहीं, शायद अभी भी थोड़ा सा
Kindly
challenge.
unmute yourself and speak, Amrit ji.
I think he's connecting to audio, is it?
Vijay ji, private trust.
Am I audible?
Bakhshi ji, yes, you're audible.
Sir, sorry to intervene. Actually, I joined late, so I can understand in the summary. Actually, I was driving the car. So one is for the special parents, they have to make a trust. So the question is, what after us? So for the what after us, we have to make the trust. The 2/3 of the corpus should be to the trust and 1/3 in the liquidity. Is this a carry home message? And the other thing is that, and it should be the funds should be every month for the special child after the parents.
That you see, that would be entirely the the wish of the person creating the trust. So it would Bakhshi ji is in now, of course. Bakhshi ji, can you hear us? So that is not the take-home message. In fact, if that was conveyed to you in that manner, it is about what you would want for your dependent, the cash flows for your dependent. That is how you structure the trust.
Like my child, see, my child is 12 years old. He has autism. So he's a high functioning autism. The thing is that if I just go into the practical aspect in a layman term, so what I can say, if I have a corpus of 1 CR, or 1 to 2 CR, then the 2/3 of the 2 CR, I can make the trust. The executive members, one is, there are 2 to 3 members of the trust, and that trust should be but for the trust to make, so that's what my question was. So the difference between one is you start from the society, and then you come, if your society expands, then you come to the trust. But the trust is a non-profit, non-loss organization. You have to do some works to make a trust, isn't it?
Not at all. This is a private trust. This is a private
trust.
So this is nothing to connect with the society. This is a private trust created with the object of, transition, succession planning.
Pure. So the private trust is not at all a charitable trust, no?
No, so that is why, as I mentioned, that is why among the pros and cons, it is a taxable entity. So the income of the trust will be taxed.
Because lot of people, the practical aspect is, lot of people are making money like anything in the name of charitable trust.
Yeah. This is unrelated to it. Absolutely unrelated.
So this is unrelated to it. So in our case, it is a private trust. It is not the charitable trust.
The difference between a private trust and a public trust is that should be for the law, good of larger community. How can you say that for your daughter or for your son or for a brother or sister, whatever, that is for the larger good? Would it be? Yeah.
So I just want to know that can private trust at small level, if it do the functions like there is some trust in the abroad, like there is a autism trust and all that. So what do you mean by the crowdfunding? So can we generate the crowdfunding in that name, the private trust? Like for example, like in the Chandigarh, in the Tri-City, there are some parents who are searching for the land. Okay,
Yeah.
you must have heard about the Action for Autism, and you must have heard about the
Yeah.
autism village in Hyderabad, no? So they have
Right.
the 2 to 3 acres of lands. So in the Tri-City, there are some parents who are searching for the land, but the problem is the corpus, because only the rest of the parents say you just start with the land, you just make some structure, and then we can come join with you. And right now we only have the about 6 to 7 parents, including their spouses, and we are just searching for the land. So we just want to we have made the society in the normal form of pact.
So you are talking about that as a trust for a bigger, larger objective. So that would not be a private trust. So that can receive money by crowdfunding, by any public donation. Once you have got the income tax exemptions, ATG and Chapter 12 exemptions are needed even after formation of a public trust. So to prove to the donating public that you are eligible for tax-free, under the tax-free category as a your objectives are for a public charitable purpose. That is for the income tax authority to authenticate, right? So in a private trust, this doesn't come into the picture at all.
Vijay sir, there's a question on our Facebook group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Dr. Satyan Sharma has asked, what are the best ways to generate an income from a corpus for a dependent person?
The best ways are just like what was there in the slide, and Amrit Bakhshy has said, according to me, although it might be a low rate of interest, is the Jeevan Shanti scheme or any other scheme that you choose from a parallel, insurer offering it, because that is the most secure way, which will continue for your lifetime, and after you, there is no involvement of a third party except Life Insurance Corporation of India, and the corpus as well as the return is guaranteed by the Government of India. Anything else you do would have variables in it. So, and the second best way is a trust. Amrit Bakhshy ji, would you like to elaborate, sir? I think Bakhshy ji, sir.
I think Bakhshy is having a challenge joining back. Gurpreet, will you please see if Mr. Bakhshy is able to join back?
He has joined, sir. I have also made him co-host, but I think he is unable to speak.
But I think this question is answered, Aditya, adequately, that these are the two avenues which are most simple to, ensure a lifetime of income generation. One is the Jeevan Shanti scheme, and these can be done in combinations also. In fact, as I said, a three basket approach also can be done. You can have this product, you can create a trust, and also you can invest on your own, and then have an administrator after you, which will take over the asset, on behalf of the beneficiary. All right.
Yes. No, in fact, this was addressed very well during the presentation, and this session is being recorded with Vijayji's permission. If he wants to share the presentation, we'll share this presentation also.
Sure, I'll do that.
So Dr. Satyan or someone has missed the initial part, I'm sure from the presentation they'll be able to gather. In fact, it was very clear that Gurpreet Bakhshy ji, I think, is having problems with the audio. Although he's here, the video is working. So in fact, during Vijayji's presentation, it was very clear that he's a passionate investor, and that was most of the presentation. So I'm sure people will gain from that. So that was addressed very well. I think Vijayji, जो आपकी presentation में और बख्शी जी की भी बात में जो एक चीज मेरे ख्याल पेरेंट्स का, गार्डियंस का कंसर्न रहेगा और जिस पे शायद हमने बहुत ज्यादा चर्चा नहीं की, how to find trustworthy trustees. Who will be these trustees? Who will be these administrators? And one person was asking, the executor of the will. CA is refusing or the lawyer is refusing, I mean, how do you find these trustworthy people? And in case the sibling is abroad or unwilling, तो in that case किसको बनाया जा सकता है? PSU bank या कोई और, क्या options हैं?
In a will, see where it comes, executor of a will. See, I'm sure we would be having some trusted colleague, dear friend, if not immediate relative, as you said, that the sibling might be abroad, somebody among our cousins, our in-laws, all right. Now, if not that, we expand our circle wider to our colleagues. If we are working professionals or employees, then, you know, it might be within our colleagues who we trust, absolutely, and who are also competent in these aspects, you know, about being the sort of fulfilling the role of an executor of the will. All right, yeah, because the executor's role is also to sort of mitigate any dispute that comes in between heirs about sharing of assets. For instance, if it is a landed, immovable property. Right now, if I say in my will that my corpus of 1 crore in my mutual funds will go equally to my 2 children, right? Yeah. I'm not talking about my spouse right now, but let's say I mentioned it that way. But when it comes to a house, then, you know, how do you make the partition of a landed property? That is where an executor plays an important role. So the wish of the testator is fully sort of implemented to the letter and spirit. Yeah. So that is where it is important that competence is also taken into account, apart from integrity and the trust that we have in the executor. The person needs to have a fair background of legal terms, financial terms, and these matters also.
Thank you so
and
much.
I guess, Aditya, the same would apply to when you appoint executors of a trust also. And I think I am personally very fortunate that I am a founding trustee of an NGO also. We have people of the highest integrity within on our board, right? I can have about, say, I can count on my fingers 10 people who I could appoint as executors in my personal affairs as well. So I think if we look within our net of contacts, that should not be such a big challenge, right?
Thank you so much, Vijayji. But as we mentioned earlier, each situation is different and the of people varies. So I'm afraid we have come to the end of our time. In fact, we've stretched longer. Although some people do have some questions, and Bakhshy ji was having a tough time joining back. Perhaps he's also a little tired. He has asked me to share his number and contact details. I wanted to ask you, Vijayji, can we share your email address or number? Or
absolutely, absolutely. You can share my email ID. So all these questions which are spilling over can be taken up on that, channel, and I will ensure that I answer those questions. And as I had discussed with you, Aditya ji, earlier on also, I have a presentation separately for persons with mental health conditions who are in better control of themselves. Yes. All right. So this was targeted more where the family is in charge, right? Because those are very diverse areas. It is difficult to create one presentation for both segments, right? Even that I'll share for your community, with your community, right?
Thank you so much. So what we'll do is we will share Vijayji's contact number, Amrit Bakhshyji's contact number, and the LIC Akshay scheme that Bakhshyji was talking about in the chat box. Vijayji's presentation, this one and the previous one. So both of them are complementary. One is for high support needs. The other is for people who are able to take care of their finances, but need a little bit of support or guidance. So both those presentations we will put up in the Citizens for Inclusive Living Facebook group page, as also the Pushpanjali Trust website. We are very fortunate that Vijayji has agreed to share those presentations. So I will just share this information in the chat box, and the presentations will be shared the Citizens for Inclusive Living Facebook page and the Pushpanjali Trust website.
And just one clarification that I needed to make here, Aditya ji, right? Yeah. So people, I mean, if there is a perception that my talk was more about investments, because at the end of the day, like Amrit Bakhshy ji pointed out so rightly, that inflation is soaring, and any amount that we devote to a dependent, even for our own needs, we cannot neglect our own needs, right? Our own retirements, our spouses' aspirations, and we might have multiple children, their own needs. So why I say financial planning and investments is necessary, that we need to take a 360-degree approach and not lean too much on the need of just one dependent and ignore the other needs, right? That is why a holistic approach to a financial plan, and ensure, our wealth grows to the maximum at the kind of risk we are sort of willing to take. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vijay ji. I'm just typing the scheme, and please let me know if that is correct.
Jivan Shanti, is that, are you talking about that scheme?
Yes, no, the Jeevan Akshay that Bakhshi ji spoke of.
Yeah. Right.
So I should share this with everyone, right?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Just wanted to make sure that I got the scheme right.
So Jivan Akshay is an annuity scheme.
Yes, Jeevan Akshay is an annuity scheme, as Bakhshi ji said, and the option G is with 3% simple increase every year.
Yeah, increase in annuity, yeah, per year, yeah.
I don't think
So
it
there
will
are
cover
various
the
options.
inflation after a few years, but that's the best option as of now.
So there are various options. I have in fact mentioned in the chat also, that. So Rita ji had that question, what is the rate of the annuity? So depending on the annuity option that you would select, your, the income from the principal would hinge on that. Right. So now there is a negative to this. When you choose a 3% increasing annuity, the initial amount that you are getting might be very less. Amrit ji is very bright in all respects, I would say, not only legal aspects, because there are actuarial calculations for insurers to do. They have to ensure that if 50 years down the line, whether they will be able to meet with that commitment, and that's why they do not sort of promise too high a commitment to the investor. All right.
Right. So Vijay ji, you have shared your contact details. I have shared Amrit ji's number. I think we will have to close this session now. And in case people want to contact you, both of you have been generous enough, people can contact you.
Sure.
I take this opportunity now to thank our honorable speaker, Mr. Vijay Nallawala. He has very passionately, with full interest, made this excellent presentation. He's also made himself available for questions if people want to contact him later. My only request to people is that both the speakers are extremely generous, Mr. Amrit Bakhshy and Mr. Vijay Nallawala, but please be careful in not overstretching their generosity. Do ask them for general advice, but for your very specific concerns, please consult your CA and lawyer. Mr. Amrit Bakhshy is also not keeping too good health, so he needs his rest as well. So please be considerate in terms of the time when you're calling them and how much time you are taking from them. Kindly be considerate. We thank all our participants, and Vijay ji, thank you so much. Very, very grateful to you, and hopefully we will have you as our speaker in some other webinar as well, since you have a wealth of information and only so much can be covered in one webinar. Thank you so much from Pushpanjali Trust, from Citizens for Inclusive Living, and all the residents of Chandigarh Tri-City. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aditya ji, and all the participants who have been so interactive. Thank you, Gurpreet. And in fact, you're thanking me. It was an honor for me to share what insights I have gained from my journey as a person with lived experience as well as a caregiver. So most of it comes from my common, lived experience in even in the financial part of it. Thank you, everybody.
We will also upload this session on our YouTube channel, so people can also visit there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gurpreet Singh, the host of this session, is a psychiatric social worker with Pushpanjali Trust. He's our rock solid backbone. So thank you, Gurpreet, for hosting this. Thank you, Amrit Bakhshy ji. Please take care. Very grateful to you. I have shared your number with the participants and some of them may call you, but please take good care of yourself. So I thank everyone and we close this session.
Thank you, everyone.